People say power reveals who we truly are, but Machiavelli believed something different. He believed power creates who we become. The Prince is not a guidebook for kings, it is a guidebook for human nature. It explains why people follow, why they betray, why they obey, why they fear, and why they desperately look for someone strong enough to lead them. And even if you've never read the book, you've seen its ideas everywhere, in politics, in business, in relationships, in every place where control and desire collide. The story begins in the early 1500s, a time when Italy was not a country but a battlefield. City-states rose and fell overnight. Alliances were temporary, leaders were murdered, exiled, or replaced faster than anyone could understand. Machiavelli lived through chaos, real chaos. Not theoretical ideas, not philosophy, but survival. When he writes about leadership, he is writing as a man who has witnessed how quickly power disappears. And that is why he opens the book with the simplest truth. A ruler must learn to survive, not to be loved, not to be good, not to be moral, but to survive. Because if you fall, your ideals fall with you. This idea alone shocks people. But ask yourself, how many times in your life have you seen a good person lose simply because they were too gentle? How many times have you seen the loudest, coldest, most strategic person rise to the top? Machiavelli wasn't celebrating cruelty, he was noticing reality. He believed human beings are not consistent. We love people when they benefit us. We betray when it's convenient. We admire strength but resent authority. We want freedom but demand protection. And because humans are contradictory, any leader who wants to survive must learn how to read these contradictions. One of Machiavelli's most famous questions is this: is it better to be loved or feared? Most people answer loved, but Machiavelli says, be feared, if you must choose, not hated, not brutal, but feared enough that people think twice before turning on you. Why? Because love is fragile. It fades with disappointment. It changes with mood. It disappears when people find something or someone better. But fear? Fear is stable, predictable, consistent. You might not like this idea, but think of your own life. Do people follow rules because they love the system, or because they are afraid of what happens if they don't? Do employees listen to the CEO because they adore him, or because their salary depends on him? Do children behave out of love, or because they fear consequences? Machiavelli isn't talking about cruelty. He is describing the psychology of obedience. He also warns that a leader who tries too hard to be loved becomes weak. They make promises they cannot keep. They tolerate behavior they should not allow. They fear disappointing others more than failing themselves. And in the end, they lose respect. So Machiavelli makes something very clear. A leader must be willing to act against mercy, kindness, honesty, and religion when survival requires it. Not always, not constantly, but when necessary. This is where people misunderstand him. They think he encourages evil. He doesn't. He encourages realism. He argues that good intentions mean nothing if they destroy your ability to lead. What use is kindness if it leads to collapse? What use is purity if it cannot protect people? What use is morality if it becomes a weakness others exploit? For Machiavelli, morality is a tool, not a rule. He gives examples from history. Leaders who hesitated were destroyed. Leaders who acted decisively, even harshly, often survived. Because the world rewards action, not hesitation. It rewards strength, not good intentions. And yet, Machiavelli also says something surprising. The ideal leader should appear moral, even if he is not always moral. He should appear compassionate, even if he cannot always be compassionate. He should appear trustworthy, even when trust is dangerous. Why? Because humans judge by appearances. We want to believe our leaders are noble, loyal, selfless. We want to believe they care, even when we know deep inside that power changes people. So Machiavelli says a prince must learn two things: how to be a fox and how to be a lion. The fox avoids traps. The lion scares away wolves. A leader who is only a lion becomes predictable. A leader who is only a fox becomes weak. But a leader who can switch between the two can rule with intelligence and authority. And isn't that true for ordinary life too? Think about your relationships, your work, your friendships. How often do you need to be gentle? How often do you need to be firm? How often have you regretted being too soft or too hard? Machiavelli believed adaptability is the highest form of intelligence, not strength, not kindness, not even wisdom, but adaptability. A leader who cannot adapt dies. A leader who adapts survives. A leader who adapts quickly conquers. He also writes about fortune, chance, luck, unpredictability. He says fortune controls half of our lives, but the other half is ours. And he compares fortune to a violent river. When the river is calm, the wise person builds dams and walls. When the river floods, it destroys everything in its path. So what is the point? You cannot control life completely, but you can prepare, you can strengthen yourself, you can stay ready. Then Machiavelli turns to one of the most important ideas in the book. People prefer stability over freedom. They say they want freedom, but when danger comes, they run toward the strongest authority. They want protection, safety, order, even if it means obeying someone they do not like. This is why dictators rise. This is why corrupt leaders win elections. This is why manipulative bosses maintain control. Not because people love them, but because people fear chaos more than they fear authority. Is this depressing? Maybe. But is it true? Look around. How often do people choose comfort over change? Security over honesty? A familiar leader over a better one? And then Machiavelli goes deeper. He explains why people betray leaders. He says people betray not out of hatred, but out of opportunity. When loyalty becomes expensive and disloyalty becomes beneficial, most people switch sides. Weak is the leader who depends entirely on others' loyalty, he warns. So what should a leader depend on? Their own strength, their own strategy, their own understanding of human psychology. Machiavelli also warns about the most dangerous people of all, those who flatter. He says a wise leader must always have advisors who tell the truth, but only when asked. Otherwise, the court becomes a theatre. Everyone acts, everyone lies, and the leader collapses under illusions. Think again, how many times in your life have you been misled by someone because they told you what you wanted to hear, not what you needed to hear? How often have compliments clouded your judgment? Toward the end of the book, Machiavelli reveals what he truly wants. Not tyranny, not cruelty, but effective leadership. He watched Italy fall apart because its leaders were weak. He wrote, "The prince, hoping someone strong enough could unify the nation. That is why some call him dangerous and others call him brilliant. Some say he promotes evil and others say he exposes the truth. Some say he destroys morality and others say he protects it. But the book leaves us with one question, a question that echoes through history, politics, business, relationships, and even our private lives. Was Machiavelli right?